Politically wounded Joe Biden is turning to the squad for help. The president's disapproval keeps rising, with his popularity underwater by double digits in 33 states. Biden is facing a tsunami of bad news on all fronts. A former Clinton pollster summing things up this way: Biden is getting hit by the four biggest political crises of the past American century, all at once. Quote, "It combines the nuclear anxieties of the 1950s and 60s with the inflation threat of the 70s, the crime wave of the 80s and 90s, and the tensions over illegal immigration in the 2000s and beyond." Now, you would think Joe would try a reset and tack to the middle, maybe focus on the problems Americans actually care about. But instead, he's running full speed into the open arms of the squad and their far-left agenda. Biden reportedly looking at canceling student debt as a way to bribe voters to the ballot boxes this year. And, of course, the squad cheering on the move.
Our president has taken an oath to represent all of us and to care for the well-being of all of us. And what we are asking and demanding today is for him to follow through with the promise of canceling student debt.
If we could bail out banks that destroyed the economy because of their illegal activity, if we can give Mr. Bezos $10 billion, you know what we can do? We can cancel all student debt in America.
And the White House actually thinks they're fighting inflation by freezing student loan debt payments. Listen.
The president's plan to address inflation or address causes or costs as they've gone up for the American people has many different components. How the American people experience inflation is costs, as you noted, whether it's at the grocery store or other costs on their pocketbook. And the president has taken a number of steps to address costs, even extending the pause on student loans, which is something he did just a few weeks ago.
Trump's line of attack on Joe Biden, Geraldo, during the campaign: he's a puppet of the far left. And now you see the squad out there bullhorning and hair waving all over the place, and it looks like he's being pushed over by the far left. Was Donald Trump right about that?
I don't think that that image has any credibility. I think when you see AOC and, oppressive of the others out there making these grandiose statements, it's not coming out of Biden's mouth. I'm not a conservative. I play with conservatives on TV. But I'm telling you, it's not about the squad. It's about Russia threatening nuclear war for the first time since the Cuban Missile Crisis. I'm really worried about the existential, phenomenon of an erratic dictator rattling a nuclear saber. I mean, this is nuts. I'm scared to death about it.
But that's not the issue of the topic. We're talking about him getting pushed over by the squad. Are you going to change your tune in a week or two when Biden says, forgive the loan?
The squad can't even get in the White House. They are so irrelevant. They're just an easy target. The fact of the matter is, I think Mark Penn was right, the pollster that you quoted at the top of the show. Biden's problem is the confluence of all of these issues at the same time. Inflation and the economy, that's a huge hunk right there. Crime, immigration. And then you have this wild card, this crazy Putin, who's losing the war in Ukraine, who could do anything.
That was a smart assessment by former Clinton pollster.
It was.
Mark Penn, about these four crises he's facing.
You know what it is? It is a perfect storm. And now the American people understand that what they voted for, all 80 million of them, is not what they ultimately got. They got a guy who was incompetent, who is cognitively, very simple. And, only 19% of them want him to run again, and less than half want her to run again. So you've got a country of people who are rising up, who are angry, who everything is affecting them, whether it's immigration and crime and food and worried about Russia and nuclear war. They were always like with Trump, oh, we're going to have nuclear war. Everybody in California, it's going to be a nuclear war. Baloney, there was no problem then. Now there's a real problem. And I think that the biggest thing of all of this is that people need to understand that they run and they say things, but in the end, you have to look at their history. He's a man who's been wrong on foreign policy his whole life. He's a man who virtually did nothing in the Senate except become a millionaire and pay off Hunter's bills. But we're not going there. But
we might later in the show.
Yeah. But let me just finally say this. This asinine, I want to pay off student debt, is an insult to the senior citizens, to the people who pay taxes, to people who decide, do I want to buy meat this week or pay for my medicine? That's hogwash. You got so many jobs, you got a great economy, let them work and pay off their bills just the way all of us do. That's the end of it.
Greg, you pay your bills on time.
You know it. Sometimes I pay early.
You're very, very prudent.
Yes. It's, Geraldo started off by talking about Russia. The problem is that Russia doesn't upset Americans. What upsets America is American problems. If you tell Americans that you're going to take their money, theft, to go pay for other people's loans, that will drive them crazy. We already have inflation. We already have crime. We already have a horrible border. The idea that we're going to take a truck driver's money and pay the tuition of some art history major with pink hair, sorry, that's not going to happen. That's why people will react to this more than they will react to a war thousands of miles away, even if the war is horrible. This is stuff that will that just says, nope, not going to happen here. And I think Biden knows it's not only is it not up to him, he is toast if he does this, because there's no such thing as canceling debt. It doesn't disappear.
1.6 trillion.
It will be paid by us, people that already paid off their loans. Then they should start paying off car loans. They should start repaying the people that paid their loans already. It's not going to happen. I think Penn framed it perfectly, because underlying all of this, the decades that he mentioned, who was in power? Joe Biden. All of those decades he mentioned, Joe Biden was like Zelig, present in everything. And he managed to pull the worst memories of each decade to create like a Frankenstein presidency, right? It's like America's worst moments on one single CD. It's like the opposite of greatest hits. You got price hikes, you got crime waves, you got gas lines. All that's missing is like a lyrics sheet for the hits, and it just, what does it tell you? What we got is what we expected to get. He was clueless every single decade. My last point is, we were oddly more stressed out under Trump, and there were fewer problems, right? Many fewer problems, let's face it. Yeah. But we feel less stressed out with a lot of major problems going on. And the only way that I can figure this out is that it's because the media had elevated the words of Trump while suppressing the deeds of Biden. Because really, our hair should be on fire. I mean, if this continues, this inflation continues, and the crime wave doesn't go away, it's bad. But we're all going, well, at least, we don't see Trump's tweets.
Well, but it's Putin's fault, right, Dana? Yeah. That's the real issue.
Well, none of that is sticking, and I agree with everything that you've said about the student loan thing. And I'll just add a couple of things. President Biden knows this is bad policy, because during the presidential campaign, he was the one that was standing well, I don't think that's a very good idea. But twice he has extended the moratorium. He got bullied into it by the left and by Twitter. They know it's bad policy. Their idea is, let's try to solve poverty by canceling the debt of graduate students who have law and medical degrees.
Yes.
Yeah. Suburban white
That's
guy.
like solving the HIV problem in Africa by giving Advil to South America. None of that, it doesn't work. And here's the other thing. Do you remember the eviction moratorium and how mad people got when you realized that those landlords that were basically, or the people that were not paying the rent were buying a speedboat, taking vacations, and it got exposed. And then what did happen? The Biden administration tried to pull back, but they couldn't. Because remember Cori Bush, the congresswoman, she slept outside on the steps of the Capitol for several nights. Guess what saved Joe Biden again? The courts. And I would imagine that on the student loan debt piece, that they'll take all the political pain from it if he goes down this path, and they'll get saved by the courts, or the taxpayers will get saved by the courts once again. And on Mark Penn, I would say that the Democrats always listen to him after they've had some spectacular loss.
It's true.
So can I just say one thing? I would throw into the group, think of the veterans who are homeless. Do something for veterans. That's all I want to say.
I think that's a good point. And
I disagree.
All of you made really, really, really great points. This is a really great conversation. I'm proud of all of you.
I'm going to slap you on the back.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.